Hey guys, Squatch here. So in this video today, we are going to keep moving forward on our XL750 series. And as promised, I'm going to set up this Dillon powder cop for you guys. And I'm going to show you how I do that. It's pretty simple. For those of you that are fond of it or want to run a powder cop, we're going to go through that today. So let's jump into it. All right, so your Dillon powder cop is going to come with basically, the powder cop assembly itself, a sensor that requires a AA battery. You're going to get 3 rods, and there's a small, medium, and large, and you're going to choose the diameter of the rod that best fits the case that you're going into. So in our case, we're using 9mm, and the medium rod is what fits nicely into the 9mm. Now you're also going to need a standard Dillon powder die, and that's what this is right here. And the tools that you're going to need is a 1/8 inch wrench, Allen key, for this set screw right here, or this through bolt, and a standard Dillon or 1-inch die lock wrench. So that's the parts that we're going to need. So let's get this installed into the press. So to get started, we're going to take our powder die here, and we're going to go ahead and start that into station 3 into our tool head like so. Now, what we want to do is go ahead and raise our shell plate up, and we're going to go ahead and thread this die down. I always am in the habit of getting my lock ring all the way to the top. We're going to go ahead and run this die down until we have about 1/8 of an inch or so gap from the bottom of the die to the shell plate. And when we get there, I will bring you back and show you what it looks like. So now that we have the powder die here set to the depth we want, we can go ahead and take our die wrench and just snug that up. And now we're ready to move on to getting the sensor itself installed and buttoned up. All right, so now we're going to install the sensor body itself. I've went ahead and loosened up the 1/8 inch socket head bolt there so we can loosen up this L bracket. Again, that's going to correspond with this groove into our powder die. So we're going to set it down onto the die, putting the push rod in the center of this hole right here. So once we get it down onto the die, I guess I loosened it up a little bit too much. But once we get it all the way flush fitting onto the die, we're going to center up that push rod into the center of the hole on station 3 and go ahead and snug up the 1/8 inch bolt like so. So to adjust the torsion onto the sensor itself, and we'll show that here in a second, we make those adjustments right here. There's 5/32 socket head bolt that goes into this push rod shaft with a jam nut. So we're going to use this to make adjustments up or down to adjust the amount of tension onto this sensor itself. So I'm going to bring you up and show you what kind of tension I'm looking for, and just note that I'll be making adjustments right here up and down. So now we want to go ahead and get this push rod adjusted appropriately, and what I'm looking for is that the powder sensor itself is making firm contact onto this housing right here, and this is where your push rod will eventually go here, right, like this. It'll eventually go in there, but what we're looking for is some firm contact there, and then we want some deflection on this leaf back here. This is what gives us a little bit of flexibility and puts tension onto the sensor itself, so we get a consistent reading. So we're going to go ahead and adjust that so we get firm contact, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do that using the housing itself here. And I just put it upside down because I want to simulate a bad reading here. So it's going to be noisy, but bear with me here. So I'm looking for good firm contact. You see we got quite a bit. We've probably got about 1/8 inch or so of travel in this brass button right here. So I want to at least get it halfway on a bad reading. And how we would adjust that would be the threaded rod at the bottom. We would go ahead and back that bolt out a little bit. And you can see we're getting, almost all of the travel soaked up. We don't want to get all of it soaked up, but I want to get a good portion of it soaked up. That's so I know that the sensor is going to work every time I need it to. So now we do, since we have that adjusted, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the lock nut on the back of this push rod, and I'll zoom you guys down here so you can see what that looks like. All right, now that we have everything kind of dialed in we're looking for, we're going to go ahead and tighten this jam nut here on the bottom of this push rod. And this is a 5/32 wrench. So I'm going to just go ahead and get that. I'm going to try here to get that into, there we go, into the socket head nut or a bolt. And then we're going to run this jam nut all the way up. And if you want, you can take a 3/8 wrench and just kind of snug it up a little bit. It's not going to come loose on you. But now we're going to go ahead and check function one more time. We should hear that annoying alarm. And we are. So now we're going to move on to testing this and getting it set up with a charged and an uncharged case. All right, so before we get into getting this set up and dialed in, a couple things that I wanted to cover. Inherently, the progressive press is designed, if you're doing your job correctly and making sure that you're fully stroking the press as it's intended, the likelihood of missing a charge is very small. However, with this system as well, what I would like to note is it's not going to pick up a couple tenths in grain variation. I think that's unrealistic just for the style of system that it is. I mean, you're basically putting a rod down in your powder, and when you do so, you're going to compress the powder a little bit, and there's inherently some variation in that as well. So I think what's realistic about this system is if you miss a charge completely, it's going to let you know. If you double charge, it's going to let you know. And I think that's really what this is good for. And especially, you guys that are new to progressive style reloading, there is a lot going on, and this maybe just add a little bit of peace of mind for you, as you're getting started into reloading. But you'll soon find that this press doesn't miss a charge unless you cause it to miss a charge. So keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and get setting this up with a charged case. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so I went ahead and I have a charged case under station 3. Now we're going to take our medium rod here, and with the sleeve, there's a notch in this. You might have to flip this over depending on which particular cartridge that you're loading, but I'm just going to kind of rough set it right now. We're going to place it into the sensor body itself, and we're just going to run it up in there and see where this plunger lands in relationship to this groove. So a good cartridge should be centered up right in the middle of this groove. So we're just going to run it up and see where we're at. And I am going to make sure I keep this case here because we're going to move this around a little bit. But so we have a little bit of adjustment to do, and the easiest way to do that I have found is just to run it up, deal with the noise until we get it where we want it. So I'm going to run it up, bear with me on the alarm, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this shaft until my plunger sits right there in the middle. And hopefully you guys can see that, but what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and carefully remove the charge again. I'm going to put it back in and just confirm that we're centering up there in that slot. So this will take a few tries to get it consistent, and the more you do it, the more you're compressing the powder. So I just kind of give it a little bit of shake there, and you can see that we're getting a good reading every time. So now what we're going to do, and this is the tricky part, is we need to hold, and it's hard to do on camera, we need to hold the body, the sleeve, and then run this nut down. And we really don't need to tighten that up with a wrench or anything like that, just so it snugs up and keeps this shaft and this sleeve from rotating around on itself. So we're gonna double check it again, and we're good. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and double charge this. So I've got my charge case, I'm putting it back into station 2, and luckily it's a pretty light charge. So now I have a double charged case, and I'll show that to you. We have a double charged case here, and we should hear that annoying alarm. Okay, so there, we have just caught a double charged case. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump this back into the powder hopper. All right, you can see we have an empty case here, and we should get an alarm as well. All right, so we're picking up a double charge and a mischarge. So we're going to call that good, and let's kind of summarize a little bit. All right, guys, so we have the powder cop dialed in, or low powder sensor, or mist powder sensor, whatever you want to call it. But again, this is not going to pick up a couple tenths variation in your charge weight. It is basically looking for a gross mischarge or double charge, and that's it. And I think that's the expectation. Do I recommend this for everybody? No. If you're a seasoned reloader on the XL750 or any progressive press, you understand that missing an operation on this press when run correctly doesn't happen. And, anytime that I've, had an issue, it's always been my issue, whether I didn't fully cycle the press forward and back or I was distracted. But if you're new to progressive reloading, it's not a bad thing to think about. It's just kind of, gives you a little bit more peace of mind, because I know some of you who've reached out to me have been very nervous getting into this, and with good reason. There's a lot going on there, but it's all very doable. The more you do it, the better you become acclimated to the press and you understand what it's really capable of. But there it is. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, squatchreloading@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Squatch Reloading. If you want to support what we're doing here, find us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Squatch Reloading. But until next time, guys, God bless.